All right. Hello. Welcome everyone to the June 2025 edition of the Higher Education Tableau User Group. We're very excited you could be here with us today because we have a lot of wonderful presentations. Well, two wonderful presentations, not three as usual, because we're going to have an extra long TC25 encore. But first, we're going to have our welcome and announcements. I will invite you to come off mute in just a minute and share any announcements you might have, followed by Meet a Community Member with Josh May from Arundel Community College. And then what I mentioned before, our TC25 Encore, Ghosts of the Past, Present, and Future, a documentation guide from Preethi Lodha. And I am personally very excited to see this because I didn't get to go to TC25 and I've been holding off on watching the video so that I could see this live. And if you stick around until after Preethi's presentation, we're going to have a Wheel of Names raffle and wrap up and chat networking opportunity for everyone. So does anyone have announcements they would like to share with the group? Any job postings, any events coming up that we might be interested in? You can come off mute, share those, or put them in the chat, or put them on our Slack page, any of those options. Sarah, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, from Wisconsin. Would it be okay if I shared in a upcoming Tableau user group event?
Of course.
Great. So I am a co-lead on the Data Pride Tableau user group, and next week at noon Eastern, we have our virtual meeting, and we'll have guest speakers from GLAD and Moxie Analytics, and they're going to be talking about the anti-LGBTQ extremism reporting tracker that they use in their organization. The event is called Using Tableau for Good, and it's all about using Tableau to report on trends affecting the LGBTQ community. So we'd love to have you there. All are welcome. I'll put the registration link in the chat. So thank you.
Thank you. That sounds fabulous. And happy Pride Month.
Thanks, you too.
Any other announcements, events, job postings, anything anyone would like to share? All right. Well, in that case, I will make one announcement, or maybe two. You're probably tired of hearing about this, but Analytics Day 2025 is coming up next Thursday, June 26th, from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time. The agenda is posted on our website. We can share that link with you in the chat. I will say that I know that 8:30 a.m. is very early for people on the West Coast, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it, but we are recording all the sessions. So if you can't make it to the whole thing, you are welcome to register. Well, registration is closed, but if you need an exception, just see me personally. I'll make sure you get on the list. But we are recording all the sessions. So even if you can't come to Analytics Day, we'll share all those recordings with the registered attendees about a week after the event. So, oh dear, the analytics event link is not working. I will get an updated link for you. Okay. After our very next announcement, which is we're having a raffle after the last presentation today. So if you're still here, and we're going to put all your names on the wheel of names and do a drawing for 12 lucky winners. So definitely worth sticking around today because dashboard documentation is a gift to future you and your team. And that's why we're going to have lots of good prizes. All right, so without further ado, it's time for our Meet a Community Member for the month of June. Today we have Josh May from Arundel Community College. He is a data analytics developer and also a Navy veteran who enjoys digging into difficult problems with a commitment to stakeholder benefits and satisfaction. So Josh, welcome.
Hello, how's it going?
Good, good. So Josh is experiencing some bad storms today, like some others of us are. And if he accidentally loses power or anything, we will just give him a chance to get back on, and we will continue at the end of the event. But as long as you have power, we'll get going with our interview. So start by telling us a little about yourself, describing your role in your team.
Yeah, so just a little bit about myself. You mentioned the Navy. That's kind of where my data journey began. Initially, I wasn't using even Excel so much, but really just doing logs and records with physical documents. But as I progressed in the Navy, I got to be a database analyst, learn a little bit of statistics. And then when I got out of the military, I went back to school and got a bachelor's degree in information science. Now I'm a data analytics developer at Arundel Community College. I do quite a bit. So we have some others that work in Tableau, but I'm like the main person using Tableau and the main person leveraging Tableau prep. So I do a lot of things, but yeah. I handle ad hoc requests in some cases. Other times it might be a stakeholder request where we're responding with a dashboard. The developer side of my title, I think, is a really good description of what I do. As far as if you think of a picture or something where the old school pictures where you take the camera to a developer and they actually give you a picture at the end of it. That's kind of how I really think of what I do. In some cases, I have data available that I can help leverage for our stakeholders. In other cases, they have data they just need help with, maybe automating. And I really like using tools like Tableau Prep to bring the data together and ultimately serve it up into a deliverable like a Tableau dashboard.
Nice. I'm excited to hear you get to work with both Prep and Tableau. So tell us a little bit more about what kind of data you work with.
So it's pretty broad. Like I said, sometimes it's ad hoc based, so it can be very varied. But I'd say my main focus would be course outcomes for students. More recently, I've been working with National Student Clearinghouse data, trying to show the journey of our students from high school to our institution and further on. I also work with some HR data, which in that example, it's really the stakeholders' data, and I just kind of help them visualize it and utilize it within the Tableau ecosystem, I guess. Yeah, but it's very wide ranging. I'm also working on achieving the dream. I do that annually, and I've come up with ways to use tools like Prep and Tableau to simplify some of those efforts.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit more about how you use Tableau at work.
Yeah. So in the example we'll see with my dashboard, we focus on program progress for students. So that was a recent request that came about where a stakeholder was sort of used to using Excel and sort of by hand looking through their students to see if they've completed given courses. And I was like, oh, well, we have the data and I know how we can do that in Tableau. So it was kind of a quick turnaround, but it was something that, they had spent a lot of time on over the years. And now we have a good tool in place where they can have more time for other projects and things without having to do all the data work that Tableau can help with. Some other projects, I've done some facilities work that I'm really proud of, but it doesn't get a whole lot of attention. But that one was really fun to put together as far as leveraging different sources together and really getting a nice picture of what's occurring on a given day within the institution. I think the most prominent thing I've done is section level outcomes. And the thing that makes that unique and special is it uses user row level permissions and Tableau usernames to sort of cater the data to those who need to see it. So the way it works is instructors can see data relevant to the sections that they taught, And then we have stakeholders that can see broader courses and subjects and the outcomes over time within there. So there's a lot, but yeah, it's all fun and yeah, I love it.
Yeah, it sounds like you do a little bit of everything. So do you have a favorite Tableau
Yeah, it
project
feels like
you've
that's
worked on?
yeah. So I would say the facilities one I really enjoyed because it took a while to really get together, and I had to um, learn some nuanced things about the data. But now that it's together, it's automated and it just works proficiently. So I love that. But I also look at the effort that went into making it possible. So that is definitely one of my favorites. And then one of the examples that we'll look at for the student program progress, I really enjoy just because it kind of exemplifies what I really enjoy doing, which is working with stakeholders and delivering on a need that they have and maybe they didn't envision was possible. I like connecting those dots and helping our users with their data like that.
Definitely. And anytime you can save them lots of time, it just makes them even happier. All right. So how long have you been using Tableau and how did you learn how to use it?
So I've been using it since 2019. So I went back to school at the University of Maryland. And while I was learning Tableau, I was also learning dynamic web applications. So I was doing some HTML and JavaScript on the side. And I found Tableau was super convenient and intuitive. So I really enjoy those aspects of it. But I also think that the sort of web development sort of shifted my thinking in a way where I look at Tableau and I think more like websites than I do dashboards, which probably sounds very, I don't know, maybe pompous or arrogant, but I do kind of look at it more like an application than I think of dashboards, if that makes sense. So I do try to tweak things with little dynamic components. Hiding dynamic zone visibility is not something I'm like the best at, but I really try to incorporate things like that to deliver data in ways that make sense and can kind of cut through, I guess, the user experience things of clicking extra buttons or extra drop downs.
Yeah, the user experience is definitely important to consider.
Yeah, I definitely I think about that, and one of the things I think we'll look at is accessibility. So we have a lot of work where I am employed at, and some of it was precedes my time here, and not a lot of it was accessibility oriented, or follow practices like adding shapes where colors exist on a line chart, for example. So some of it's gone back to uh, from functionality more to like how is everyone looking at this? How can we meet all of our audience members um, and improve pre-existing work where maybe these things weren't necessarily considered in the past.
So do you have a favorite Tableau feature?
So I mentioned prep a few times. I would say prep is my favorite thing about Tableau. I think to me, it has the most value. I do like coding and using Python, but it is super nice to be able to connect to data and just sort of visualize what's occurring within it while factoring in some SQL coding and things like that. So I really love Tableau Prep. But yeah, I guess within the desktop version, it didn't start this way, but I've really grown to love parameters and the things that you can do with them. And more frequently, I love buttons and just being able to hide elements when you click a button. So simple things like that really get me going.
Definitely. Parameters are so powerful. So what is something that you would like to learn more about in Tableau?
So I started looking into Tab PY, I guess like a year or two ago, and then other priorities came up, and I haven't gotten back to it. I want to get proficient with that because I do have a lot of processes that are written out in Python, but I want to leverage them with Tableau Prep. So that's an area where I know I have room for growth, and I look forward to exploring more in the future. But yeah, I definitely have a lot to learn there.
Excellent. What is one thing you wish you could go back in time and tell Tableau newbie you?
So first I would say use prep. I think I was a little hesitant at first because my predecessor sort of left very shortly after I began. It didn't really show me much. And we had one process that really used it. So I felt like I could use Python to kind of just work within my comfort level. But the more I worked with prep, the more I kicked myself thinking like, why did I waste all that time coding in Python when I could have just used prep? So I think number one, I would say just get familiar with prep and use that. It's very powerful and helpful.
Good advice. Do you ever use Tableau outside of work? And if so, how?
Yeah. So I have some sort of hobby things like to do. Some are practical, and some almost some I feel like maybe I get carried away with. So for instance, I have like a vacation dashboard where my wife and her friends and we all went on vacation, and then it was like we should do this again. And I don't know, you can go online and you can sort of curate your own list and things, but I was finding I was getting more and more frustrated with sort of having to go back to favorited places. So I was like, let's just put this in a Google sheet, and then they can share their places, and we can create a dashboard and even include dates and stuff. So some of it is just like fun and practical. Like I'm planning, which I don't even think of myself as the biggest planner, but I do like using Tableau for stuff like that because it really helps me just sort of refer back to data and things that I like. But also, I have a baseball dashboard I put together for the Phillies about a year ago, and that one has a calendar and just scores. And I'm admittedly not a lifelong baseball fan. It's kind of recent for me. So I was like, well, I like working in Tableau, and I want to know more about the Phillies. So let's put together a dashboard and just see what we can do with that and the data that's available. So there's not like a whole lot of statistics in there, but there's scores, and there's a calendar going back to 1900 with their records and scores going back over time. So I have some hobby things where if we look at my page, you'll see there's a few other on there. There's a Taylor Swift one I put together where it's looking for anagrams. So if you're interested, if like the name Travis or Kelsey is sort of mixed up in any words in Taylor Swift lyrics, you now have a tool that you could use to do that. I don't remember off the top of my head where I found Travis, but there's definitely a Travis anagram in her I'm blanking on the word here, her discography. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm definitely going to have to check that out. I think you might get some new Tableau public followers today.
Maybe, we'll see.
So is there anything else you would like to share before we move on to our dashboard spotlight?
I'm a little reluctant to share it because it's not super Tableau oriented, but if you do look at my page, I've been recently doing some JavaScript work where I'm interested in maybe filling in where viz extensions maybe aren't meeting the mark in certain places. And that's very lofty to say, but I have a Sankey chart thing I worked on for the past few days that I'm kind of excited about as far as this static Sankey chart creator. And then I also did something last night that I was really excited about, which is a network diagram that has sonification on it. And it's very exploratory, but it's kind of fun to look at and check out.
That was very cool. And I don't think that's too lofty at all. I think everybody's got to start somewhere. All right, so Roshi is sharing your dashboard spotlight page. So start by telling us about this dashboard. What do you like about it? And it's your dashboard, so I'm just going to let you talk about it and what you like about it.
Yeah, so I created this more as a conversation piece. So this isn't actually from my work, but these are examples of things that we have. So I start with a welcome message, kind of describing the dashboard. There's a link at the bottom for my GitHub where you can find the dummy data. In creating this, I did create dummy data. So I did use GPT to help me come up with some Python scripts to create dummy data. So if you're just, I don't know, experimenting with Tableau and want some dummy data, you can utilize those. the dashboard itself, if you click on dashboard up there or click your review content, it includes enrollment and success in a quadrant. And that's a visual that we've had at my workplace for some time. But recently we've made accessibility changes. So it used to just be circles that were colored. So we've added shapes there, which can work and maybe not the best method, but it's something we've kind of put in place. And then also within the quadrants, we have some titles that tell you what they mean. And then if you're familiar or not, there's a legend above that, which has some cut off text. But that legend is not something that's like organic out of Tableau. Like you can get a color legend, you can get a shape legend, but they don't combine them. And working with accessibility specialists at my school, I was like, well, what's the best practice? And they're like, well, I think if you can combine them, that would be better practice than separate. There's less elements to look at and read. So that's something we've been incorporating in different views where there is color and there is shape. Instead of having two legends, let's just consolidate them into one. To the left of that, there's a table showing the departments and courses. It's not super sophisticated, but it's got a hierarchy, which is another thing that we've been doing to help navigate through data. So you can utilize the hierarchy and the filterability of that table to modify the quadrants. And then below that is something that I talked about also, which is student program progress. And this is kind of what it looks like for what I deliver to the stakeholder. It tells you for the students. Yeah, so this is looking at the quadrant. That's okay. Yeah, I have a few buttons that I talked about also. I like to hide things. So part of that is like, if you want to see a bigger view of something, I like to kind of offer that functionality. Thank you for the extra views, by the way. But if we look at the student program progress, you can see rows of students and the program that they're enrolled in. And then you can see records for those courses and the earliest instance in which they completed the course. So this is similar to something that I actually have in place where I'm working. And the data source we have is nice because it has future enrollment also. So the person utilizing the tool can tell like when students are enrolled in a future term, for instance. And we can also group things by department. So if you look at the columns, you'll see Soc, psychology, and then you also see specific courses, Biz 120. And this is very similar to what the stakeholder was already doing, but just using some LOD calculations, you can kind of find the minimum term and then replace the numbers with the letters for fall or winter, what have you, and then put it onto a table like this. That was years in the making as far as experience goes and getting familiar with LODs and data sources. So it might not look like a lot, but for me, something I'm excited about. And again, it helps a stakeholder, do their job in a more efficient manner and save time. So something I hope will take off with other parts of data, put some new programs and things in, and I think it's very helpful.
So is there anything that you learned from this dashboard that you think others might find interesting or informative?
So yeah, I think some of the things I learned that I put into this were like the accessibility pieces. Clarity is kindness is something we say a lot around here. So I tried to do that, and maybe this isn't the best model, so I'm always open to feedback, which is part of the reason I did this. I think in April, the Meet a member said, don't be afraid of feedback, and they kind of encouraged me. So I'm really looking for feedback to see what else I can learn. But for me, things like adding shapes where colors are present, it's like seems simple, but I think there's different ways to kind of handle that. Like I've approached with the legend. So I think, I don't know, just clarity is kindness, and trying to, deliver something that meets all of your users in the most efficient way you can. It's not always possible, but I think there's some good examples of things that we've done and I've learned that help us sort of in that mission.
Excellent. So if anybody wants to connect with Josh to provide feedback on his dashboard, reach out in the chat, or maybe if you're able to stick around the breakout rooms after today's session, and maybe just over email. So I will also mention there's a new Tableau community Slack group where they have a feedback channel, and that might be something if you want to get it, presented before a larger audience, not just HETUG, then that's as well.
That's good.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for being our Media community member and for sharing your own personal work.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. If anyone is interested in being a future Media community member, please let us know. We are always looking for new volunteers every month. So I will turn it over to Sam to introduce our next presenter.
Hi, everyone. So I have the honor of introducing Preethi. And so Preethi is a data analytics and insights manager in the University of Massachusetts President's Office. But beyond that, she's a Tableau Public Ambassador, a featured author with over 1 million, yes, over 1 million Tableau Public views, and 3 vizzes of the day. She's also an active contributor to the Tableau community, where she co-leads the Tableau community project, Data FamCon, and both the Boston and Tableau public user groups. And she is also on the advisory board for the Data Plus Women Northeast Tableau user group. So thank you so much, Preethi, for joining us today and giving this presentation.
Thank you, Sam. I just need to go ahead and share my screen. Roshni, are you going to stop sharing screen? Okay, yep, thank you. Okay, somebody give me a thumbs up. You're able to see the presentation. Yep, Sam, thank you for that. Okay, let's start it here. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited to be here at the Higher Education Tableau user group to talk about something that most of us have struggled with at some point, dashboard documentation. I call this talk Ghosts of Past, Present, and Future because if you have ever tried to fix a dashboard without documentation, you know exactly how haunted things can get. So thank you for your time. And so what are we going to talk today about? Here are the few things of where we are headed. We are going to start with few challenges that some might expect. Well, what happens when the documentation is missing. Then we will break into 7 essential components of good documentation. And then I'll walk you through some practical strategies and in-product features in Tableau that you can use right now, followed by some real-world examples showcasing what the documentation and the template can look like for you. And then we will, in the end, I am going to walk you through the smooth handover process because it is not just creating documentation, but creating documentation, maintaining it, and handing it over so that the dashboards that you build can live on successfully, even without you. And of course, we will wrap it with Q&A in the end. So do jot down your questions and I will be happy to take them towards the end of it. So a quick background, as Sam had introduced me. Hi, I'm Preethi Lodha. I'm a data analytics and insights manager. Currently serving at University of Massachusetts President's Office. I'm also an alum of Texas A&M University and University of Massachusetts Amherst. I'm wearing my Amherst swag today just to showcase how proud I am to be part of higher ed. Yep, go Aggies. So quick background about me. As Sam had said, I currently serve as a Tableau Public Ambassador. This is my Tableau Public profile, and the thing that I'm really excited and proud about is one dashboard, which is called How Americans of Different Generations Spend Their Money. And when Josh was talking about the vacation dashboard, it reminded me of me building this dashboard where I was wanting to know if my spending was on par with what the rest of the country is spending based upon my age and stuff. So that is a that has over 1 million views. I also co-lead the Tableau public user group and Boston Tug. Next week, we are having a Boston Tug event. So anybody local in Boston, do come join us for an in-person event. Roshni is speaking, and we have a few people from the Salesforce offices coming. So that would be really exciting. And it is a joint event between Boston and Mass Higher Ed Tug. So I look forward to meeting you all. And if my face looks familiar to you, it is because I was that person who was cheering hard at IronViz and got picked up on social. So Tableau tends to post this picture of me a lot. So that is where you might know me from. Okay, so let's start with some really real pain points. I want this to be interactive because I won't be able to see the raise of hands. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna post in the chat one of the scenarios that I'm talking about. And if you can give it a like or a heart, it will sort of give me an understanding of if you have faced these scenarios. So one of the first scenarios that I'm gonna talk about is the mystery dashboard dilemma. What is this mystery dashboard dilemma? You have been asked to update a dashboard that you didn't build. You open the file and nothing is making sense. And there are cryptic calculations, there are cryptic field names, and there is no documentation. So you have no idea where should you even begin. And my experience with this was one of my dashboards stopped working. And when I went in, and because in my organization, we tend to build these dashboards in partnership. So one of my colleagues was testing for a certain filter, and they created a filter called filter test final. And that errored out. And that is why my dashboard was broken. So yeah. And I was like, what does this field mean? I have no idea of the calculation that is being looked at and the functionality, and I have no idea who updated the dashboard. So that was my updating a dashboard that I didn't create. So next is the second scenario, which is called the handoff headache, where you have created a dashboard and you are handing it off to, let's say, a different team. And they are responsible for the maintenance of this dashboard. Especially if you are in consulting side of the business, you create these dashboards, you give it to your, give it out to a client who will be responsible for the maintenance, but you have not provided them with the documentation. So without the proper documentation, sometimes the client might not know what are the flags or filters that they need to keep an eye on. How often is the data refreshed, or what are the few essential maintenance tips that they have to keep running so that the dashboard does not break down. Yeah, same goes, Roshni. Whenever you switch jobs, that might be happening. The third scenario that I want to talk about, and this is so real, especially if you're building dashboards, is the troubleshoot time warp. In this one, you have created a dashboard, but it was long time ago. You have forgotten what was the idea behind this dashboard or what were the conversations you had, and you are now struggling to troubleshoot this dashboard, because as dashboards do, it works fine until the day it does not. And you don't know how to fix it. And you are staring at your calculations and like, what was I even thinking? This is why documentation is just as much as for future you as anyone else. Okay, so what are the common struggles that you might come across with these scenarios? You don't know the why behind the dashboard. There is no explanation for the key calculations or filters, or you are afraid to touch anything because you don't know what might break. The good news is right? These problems are completely avoidable with solid documentation. So what are the key components what that should be included in your documentation? I have identified it into 7 key pieces that you might want to cover in your documentation, which I'm going to walk you through in detail in upcoming slides of what should you include. We'll start with an overview section, followed by data sources and connection, followed by calculated field and parameters and sets. Then comes the filter and actions. Then comes performance consideration, access and permissions to the dashboard, and finally, version control and updates in the dashboard. A quick key point that I want to make sure that we have an understanding when we are building these dashboards is you don't need to write a novel, just enough so that someone else or future you can pick up from where it was left off. So the first question is, let's start with the big picture. What is this dashboard for? Who would use it? What key metrics are being tracked? And this is what it could look like. Feel free, don't feel the need that you need to capture this image. I do have a gift for you at the end. I'm going to provide you the entire documentation template that you can download. So let's just go on this journey. I hope you're relaxed and just enjoy listening to it. So what am I capturing in this first overview section? I'm sort of providing this overview of high-level introduction of the dashboard. Think of this as your dashboard elevator pitch. It just provides you necessary context before anyone gets into the details. It is identifying what the dashboard name is. And recently, I started adding the link to the dashboard because I don't know if in your workplace, we have versions of dashboards. We do version controlling. So if a dashboard has been updated, we update the version of it. And somebody told me, hey, Preethi, it's difficult to track just by the name. Can we add the link to the dashboard into the documentation? And I was like, that's a great idea. And we went ahead and added the dashboard link in there. I tend to identify who the creator of the dashboard is. It sort of just gives you an idea if the person is still in your organization to have that conversation with them, or if not, it just gives an idea of what this dashboard was. When this dashboard was created, so whenever you have pushed it to your production, it's live, that is the date that I tend to put in there. And the last updated date. The last updated date is not when your data was refreshed for the dashboard. It was when you updated the dashboard in the backend itself. Followed by the purpose of the dashboard, who the primary audience for this dashboard is, because sometimes when your dashboard breaks, you need to let people know, hey, we are fixing this or we are working on it, and you want to know the audience that needs to be known about this. And I found this really helpful when I know the audience that has access to the dashboard. Followed by some key metrics that are being tracked in the dashboards. I sort of identify the KPIs that this dashboard is going to identify, because it is really helpful for people to see all the KPIs within the dashboard, because sometimes the dashboard is multi-step, right? And there are different KPIs that are being tracked, and you want to identify it on the first page that this dashboard is going to give you the set of information right away. If you are feeling very engaged, I tend to like to add what business question that this dashboard can answer, because there are different types of dashboards, right? There are some dashboards which is just presenting data, but there are dashboards that is analyzing the data and providing you an insight. So this section really helps. And how to use the dashboard has been something consistently people have asked, because as much as I love hiding things and doing buttons, if there's not a guide of where to click to see where to go in the dashboard, especially with the filters and hover over and tooltips, people tend not to have an understanding. So a quick screenshot of how to use the dashboard is what I like to add in the documentation. Coming to the next part, data, right? In this section, what I like to identify is where the data is coming from. How is it being connected? Is it live or extracted? This section should help your users understand the foundation so that they know where the data is coming from before even they understand or start analyzing the visuals to troubleshoot. And in this section, pretty straightforward. It's identifying your data source name, whether it's a file or a server connection. And if it is like a server connection, I tend to identify what would be the user ID and password. I tend to say, please do not save your login information in documentation. The best practice is to create a separate document and provide link to it and lock that document where user IDs and passwords sit, because sometimes you might want to have everybody to have access to the documentation, but not everybody to have access to your servers or backend data. Followed by whether the connection type is live or extract, because sometimes you have to refresh the extracts and something is broken there. So it is really helpful for people to know if it is the live data that they're looking at or extract. Followed by the refresh frequency, how it is set up, whether it's a daily refresh, weekly, monthly, whatever. This is the next one, is the part where it's completely identifies how you're going to go forward, whether you are doing joins, relationships, unions, or blends when you are connecting to your data. Because there have been places where my joins were not working and I had to go in and do the research there. So listing how your tables are connected is very critical, and it sort of gives an overview or snapshot to the user right away. They know, hey, these are the 5 tables, these are the connections that it is joining on. Followed by key filters. When I talk about the key filters, I'm talking about the extract and the data source filters that we apply even before we are getting into the dashboard. And the impact of those filters will be different. To give you an example, I had a filter turned on where I was looking only at a certain student population, and somebody in my team was saying, hey, the dashboard is broken because I'm not looking at the other student population. And it was as simple as me saying, hey, because I have a data source filter put on for the purposes of this dashboard running smoothly, that is why you're not seeing the other student population. The dashboard is not broken in that case. Okay, the next component that your documentation should totally capture is the calculated field parameters and sets. This is where I have seen dashboards often fall apart. Like if you have built calculated fields with nested logic, because we do write complex calculations, right? There is a calculated field which is dependent on other calculated field, which is dependent on other calculated field. And when your dashboard is broken and you are going down the way, you feel like Sherlock Holmes trying to solve the puzzle. And it takes time and effort. But what I have figured out is that in the documentation, I can put all those calculations in one screen. So now people can see, hey, these 3 calculations are interdependent on each other, and this is the order in which it goes. Same goes with your parameters, because you're adding parameters to customize views. So it is important to document what they do, why they are used, and where they are applied. Otherwise, somebody will in the back end will be wasting time trying to reverse engineer your thought process. So what could this look like? This would look like this. Pretty straightforward, different sections. You identify your field name, your calculation, and the purpose of the calculation. Same goes with the parameters and the sets you might identify. I generally insert a table here. So it is a table of calculations, and it has the 3 headings with name, formula, and purpose, and you can capture that information. And same goes with parameters and sets. Cool. Coming to the next component, the interactivity part of your dashboard, right? So the filters and the actions of your dashboard. You want to let your capture what dashboard filters are in place. Are they context filters? Are they dimension filters? Are they measure filters? Are table calculation filters and their impact? Because there is a hierarchy in which your data gets filtered, right? The context filters come first, followed by the dimension filter and followed by the measure filter. So yeah, it is important that you capture what these are. And why it is important to document these is because these are the ones that often break silently. And when the data changes, and you have to have an understanding of what this filter or this dashboard action that is in place does. So how are you going to capture? Again, pretty straightforward. You list them in a table. Similarly with the dashboard actions, what I like to identify is the dashboard action, what type of dashboard action is, and what sheets does it impact. Cool. Coming to the next one. This is slightly a departure from just the dashboard build of it, but I think it is very critical to capture the performance. When I mention performance, I am referring to the speed with which I can work in Tableau. This could mean the speed of the data analysis, such as working in desktop on a large database in the backend, and I'm accessing this database remotely. Or this could also refer to the speed with which your views are loading on your dashboard when you are accessing this on your Tableau server. If you have, and a lot of times we optimize our data sizes, right? Or limit the data by dropping unnecessary columns, aggregating at appropriate level. This needs to be captured. People need to know. Because you have identified an issue and you have implemented a performance consideration in the backend. So what would this look like? You are going to capture in this the data extract size and the performance notes you might have, what the dashboard load time should be around. Sometimes people know, hey, my dashboard takes 10-15 seconds to load. That is a normal performance issue that we have identified. And there might be performance issues that you might have already known and know that this cannot be resolved. This is an existing bug. You capture that so that anybody, if experiencing similar thing, can come to your documentation and see, oh, this is already being identified and looked into. This is not new, or they can log in a new issue that they are coming through. Cool. Next, coming to the sixth component is access. Talking about access and permissions, I'm talking about once you have published your dashboard, who has the access to the dashboard. This section is more about the security and access structure of your dashboard per se. Just having an understanding what are the roles and permissions that people have when they're viewing your dashboard, and who can edit this dashboard in the backend, or who is the owner of the dashboard. Similar to the data source password protection, I would say that create a separate list of these viewer access and edit access, and identify who the individual users are and lock that document. But you can always provide like a hyperlink saying, hey, you want to know who all has the access to this dashboard, click on this link. And if you're at the right level, that other file should open for you, and you will be able to identify who all has access or permission to view these dashboards. Cool. Coming to the final component of your data documentation, version control. This is the meat and potato of your dashboard documentation. This will provide a critical insight during troubleshooting, audits, or handoffs. This is how you track changes, who made them, when were they made, and why were they made. And this is also where I like to identify who is maintaining the dashboard, so that it also gives a clear path of ownership, which ensures that your dashboard has continued support and accountability for updates. how do you capture this in your documentation? This could be a simple language where you're identifying the version of your dashboard. As I said, we do version controlling for our dashboards. You identify the date and what was updated and when was it updated, what fields were added and stuff, and have a change log of sorts. Again, these are not hard and fast rules. You can design your dashboard documentation depending upon the organization you are in and what makes sense for you. But these 7 aspects are the 7 essential components should form the basis of your dashboard. Okay, so now we know what the components of documenting these dashboards should be, but how do we actually do them all in practice? So I'm going to talk to you about what this could look like. You don't need a fancy tool. You can document your dashboard right inside Tableau, probably using components, descriptions, color coding. I'll walk you through of what that could look like. Or you could build a simple template in Word document or Google Doc or in a SharePoint, whatever your organization uses. Just identify a location or a hub where you are going to place all this information and identify the structure of it and place it. The point of this is to choose something that works and stick to it and just engage in the best practices of what you want your documentation to look like and to provide the users, the developers in the backend when they're engaging with Distraught dashboards. Okay, so now I'm going to talk to you about embedding your documentation directly in Tableau. There are 4 ways that you can do it. So without leaving your workbook, what can I do? Adding comments in your dimensions and measures, adding comments in your calculated fields, leveraging sheet descriptions. This is something that I've seen a lot of people sleep on. Like your sheet descriptions already identify all the things that you might want to capture in dashboards. And it could be as simple as copying those sheet descriptions and pasting them all in one document. And that can be a source of your dashboard documentation. And lastly, color coding your worksheets. So let's talk about how do we do this. So the first one is adding comments in your dimensions and measures. It is as simple as going to your field, right-click on it, in default properties, add a comment, and in the comment, just identify what does this field mean. This is in lieu of data dictionary. A lot of organizations have invested in data dictionary for their data sets, but sometimes people don't have those data dictionaries and you are new to the organization. You don't know what these fields mean, what values it can hold. So what the best practice that I suggest is add to your fields and information of what this field means and what are the different data points that it can have. So, and that could be done by adding a comment to your dimension or field. That way your clients or somebody else who is working on your dashboard has access to that. Coming to the second one, adding comments to your calculated fields. This goes back to the initial point that I was making. Somebody created this calculated field. Please make sure your calculated fields are named properly. Apart from that, you can comment your calculated fields. And this is sort of a documentation, right? You can add a comment of what the calculation means, who created the calculation, when was this calculation created. And sometimes we do update our calculations, and you can version control your updates and calculations just in the comments up here. How do you do this? Again, simple. You just right click, open the calculation, and you add comment lines. Double forward slashes for single line comments, and /* and n/* if you have multi-line comments, and you will see your calculations don't break. but now somebody who is new to these calculations has an understanding of what this dashboard is supposed to do. And don't be afraid to include too much information, because you never know how a small detail could be helpful for somebody in future. And it's a great way. I love to sign off my calculations with my name in there. Sometimes I do write complex LODs, and I want to share with my team that, hey, this LOD was created by me. So come have a conversation with me. And it works. Yeah. So sheet descriptions. This is a little known shortcut that a lot of us sleep on, and this could jumpstart your documentation process completely. So go to your worksheet tab, you click on Control E, and your sheet description pops up. And sheet description packs so much information, right? It is already identifying what this worksheet is doing, what columns and fields are placed on marked cards, calculations and comments and data sources that are included. And it is also identifying the data source and the logical tables that are included. And this has become your documentation. And for your dashboard, this has become sorry, I'm in office and my lights went off. So that is why I was frantically waving my hands. But okay, coming back to the conversation. For your dashboard, if you have 5 sheets, now you can grab all this information and put it into a Word doc, and that can become your documentation if you are not able to create the whole setup of using a template. Finally, this is more of an organizing your dashboard per se, is color coding. This is a simple but effective way of organizing. It just lets you know that if you have multiple dashboards and multiple worksheets in your dashboards, that which worksheet belongs to which dashboard. You can color code this so that it sort of keeps track of associated and related worksheets. This is serving more as a visual cue for anybody who is engaging in your dashboard and does not get overwhelmed when they see this massive dashboard. Okay, so coming to the real world examples that I promised that I'll walk you through. Let's talk about what the documentation could look like. What I went ahead and did was I put this Tableau dashboard documentation together. This is based upon the Superstore dashboard. I wanted to keep it generic because I think Superstore dashboard is like the foray into Tableau dashboard building for a lot of us, and that is the first dashboard that we all have seen. As I had said, there is an overview section. Recently, I learned a new thing that I probably will update my dashboard documentation is that insert and page of contents section, so your people can click on the different sections rather than having to scroll through the dashboard. But let's start with this. Simple, straightforward. It identifies the dashboard name. It is providing the link. Who was the creator? You can add the dashboard, created date, updated date. And as I said, the purpose, it is a simple line. It is just identifying what this dashboard is going to do and who's the audience for this dashboard. And this is where you can have individual names identified, but identifying the overall level of this dashboard, because sometimes you have leadership dashboards. Sometimes you have analyst level dashboards. The leadership dashboards are more about insights and KPIs. But yeah, followed by key metrics and the business questions that this dashboard is going to answer and how to use this dashboard. I have not added the screenshots, but I have in my work dashboards, we tend to add a lot of screenshots of how to navigate this dashboard. Coming to the worksheets and layout, this segment was not in your walkthrough, but I promise in the final documentation download that I'm going to provide you, this is a segment, and I have seen that people have found it useful, especially if you have a dashboard with multiple dashboards and worksheets in it, then organizing it in this single way sort of helps, and identifying if there is any special formatting or customizations that you have, or any color coding that you might have in place. Capturing that information is really helpful. Same follows through with the data sources and connection. As you see, it is pretty straightforward. I say this is the data source name, it is a file type. The data connection is an Excel, the extract, and the data in our Salesforce Superstore tends to be static. But if it is not, then you identify what is the refresh, how often is this data refreshed, and all that other information. And in the joins, relationships, union, and blends part, this is where I'm identifying what sort of a relationship exists between the tables and the joins on which that is happening. So it sort of gives you a single snapshot of all the joins, all the different data components that are coming together to put this dashboard together. Followed by the key filters. Again, these are the filters about your data source, your extract filters and data source filters. These are not the filters of your dashboard. Coming to the next component, your calculated fields and parameters. As I said, like this is the table, right? Sort of gives you a single snapshot of what are all the different calculations you have, the formula, the purpose. And I also like to add like a version control column in there so people know of when was this calculation introduced, was in version 1 or in version 2 a new calculation was added and what it looks like. Followed by filter and actions. And this is the critical one. This sort of is breaking down, right? Start with the context filters. Those are the first set of filters that tend to apply whenever your dashboard is implemented. So people know what it could look like. Followed by dimension filter, measure filters, and table calculation filters, and the dashboard actions. With dashboard actions, I tend to only identify the actions that are being used, not list all the dashboard actions and say no dashboard actions were used. It is more of identifying what has been in place. Followed by the section of the performance consideration, the access and permissions. Again, this will be a URL or a link that you are going to provide to a locked file that we don't have access to. Finally, the version control and update information. And this is, again, a separate section that I introduced, which is called additional notes and documentation links. Because people want to know, right? Where does your documentation, where is your documentation hub? Where does this sit? What are things that people might need to know? So you just capture that information of who the contact person could be if you have any questions about this documentation or the dashboard that you're working on, followed by the contact and support. This could be pretty straightforward. I do like letting people know the question and feedback part. We have like an internal web page where people can come and put information up there so that we have eliminated the part where I have to identify who the individual person would be. Our team gets an email, and any questions about the dashboards that my team has created, we all get to know about it. Okay. So now let's go to the Tableau workbook part of it. So we walked through the documentation part and okay. Here. So I'm going to talk about the 4 different things that I had talked about, adding comments to sections and stuff, right? So this is the generic Superstore dashboard that I think everybody has engaged with or seen. This is the overview dashboard. Let me start by talking about color coding your dashboards. Let me try and zoom in so it sort of is helpful. So the overview is the dashboard, and these are the worksheets that participate in it. So what I can do is I'm gonna go and color code it to blue. So in future, if anybody wants to know, hey, what worksheets corresponds to what dashboard, they have like a visual cue that they can go and look at. And yeah, so that is the purpose of that. Now, okay, now let's talk about adding comments to your documentation dimensions, right? So this is the table, and I want to know, what does this field mean? So currently you see, as I'm hovering over, you already see it is saying full name of the customer. How did I get it? I right click on this, and if you go to the default properties and hit comment, it sort of pops up a dialog box, which you see here that says edit comment. And you can type whatever thing you want to say. It is a full customer name. It is 20 characters or 30 characters or whatever your limitation is. Provide as much information or as less information as you want. This is more of your data dictionary, right? So click OK. And voila. So next time, whenever you hover over, you are going to see that it sort of brings up that pill, which has identified what this column, what this dimension is all about. So that is a documentation. Quick thing, we talked about adding documentation to your comments. So there is some, to your calculation, sorry, adding comments to your calculations. And the way I love to do it is, if you go into your worksheet and type C:, it is identifying all the calculations that are present in your workbook. This is a neat hack that I learned, and I shared it at the conference, and people were really excited. So I do want to share that. I apologize, Emil. This is the maximum zoom I currently am at. But yeah, I'm so sorry. So what does this look like? Again, you edit your, go into your calculation, hit edit. So I hit edit on the calculation and it popped up this calculation. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a comment saying this calculation is to identify the number of days it takes to actually ship. And this is where, if any of you have done coding, this is where you sort of provide information, right? You say, hey, this was created by this on this date, and this is the purpose of this calculation, and this is the dependency, and this is how we calculate it, and that is information. And as you would see, once I did the forward slashes, it still is saying the calculation is valid. So, which means it is taking in the comment, and this is the way that anytime in future, anybody who comes and looks at your calculations can have an understanding. The other neat trick that I learned is, for your calculations also, you can add comments. And I found it really useful to just add the formula in the comment for your calculation, so that every time your user does not have, or your developer does not have to open each individual calculation to see what this calculation formula is. It might be helpful for the smaller formulas. If it is a complex formula, probably not. Now coming to the documentation part that I was talking here. So describe sheet, right? Go into your worksheet, click Control E or click on describe sheet, and it is popping up this sheet description that has captured all the information of what is happening in your worksheet. And this can now become your documentation. If your team is smaller, you don't have resources. This could be a documentation that you want to copy. So all you do is at the bottom, there is a copy button. So if you hit copy, it will copy the entire information, and you can paste it and restructure it however way you want to do it. So that way you can do documentation within your dashboard, even without leaving Tableau. Everybody with me so far? Okay, I'm gonna assume you're all giving me thumbs up, and let's come to almost the closing part of it. You have created the dashboard, but now what are the best practices of handling this dashboard? As I initially said, documentation is one thing, but knowledge transfer is another. I strongly urge do both. Conduct a walkthrough session once you have built that your documentation, so that anybody who is engaging in this has an understanding of what can they expect of this documentation before they go resolving the issues in the dashboard. A critical thing that I've understood is everything like documenting your calculations, documenting your parameters, that is really helpful. But documenting any assumptions or dependencies that you have identified will really help in resolving the dashboard issues that somebody might face. Identify the version history, and if you want to go one step ahead, think about what the rollback plan needs to be if your dashboard breaks. If you have a dashboard that has a huge consumer base, what happens if it breaks? Do you have a different dashboard that they can rely on, or is there a messaging that needs to go out when that happens? Think about that, and if you want to identify that as a plan in your dashboard documentation, that would be a great thing that you could do. Again, I want to reiterate, ensure access to your source file and credentials. Please do not place any credentials in documentation. Have a separate setup where you can have this information, and assign a point of contact for future questions. The point of contact does not need to be a single person. The point of contact could be a team, whatever your organization does. So pull your phones up. This is the QR code you might want to take a snapshot of, and especially because this is being recorded, you can always come back to the recording and take a snapshot then too. This sort of gives you access to the documentation template that I was talking about. Let me quickly show you what the documentation template would look like. It is everything that I talked about. There are a few extra things in there that I didn't talk about, few components that I didn't talk about in the presentation. But as I think a lot of you might be feeling like it is a lot of work to do, but good documentation will save time and frustration. And as your dashboard development process, do not treat documentation as an afterthought. Have it inbuilt into your development process. Because although there is no substitute for the original developer's knowledge of the dashboard, good documentation could be the next best thing. Incorporating these tips can make the process easier to compete and more beneficial for the next developer or the future you. So yeah, that is all I have for you all. Thank you for this opportunity to talk. I'm happy to take any questions you all might have.
Thank you so much, Preethi. We are actually short on time for questions, but I hear that you are on the Tableau community Slack and all over various socials. So I assume that folks can reach out to you via one of those means.
Totally, Roshni.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for presenting this, your presentation. It was amazing. And I learned so much. It was very helpful as I just switched departments and had to take everything out of my brain and out of my Tableau workbooks and throw them at people. And I definitely used some of what I learned a couple months ago at TC in that process. So with that, we're at raffle time. And if you are one of the winners, contact us at higheredtug@gmail.com with your shipping address and a contact phone number, and we will ship out your prize. So we've got a couple more minutes left, and before we let you all go, although you're always welcome to go whenever you want, please don't leave us. We do have some links to share. We want to know what you thought of today's meeting. We have a few more TC encores throughout the rest of the summer. Let's call it our summer vacation. Thank you so much to the speakers who spoke today, including Preethi and Josh, and to those guys who are coming in the next few months with their TC encores and their Meet a Community members and their tips and tricks. So next month, a month from today, in fact, that date looks very wrong. That date is wrong. We'll
I
get
think
the
it's the
actual
16th.
That sounds way better. I'm like, I'm doing the math, and that is not the right number of days. So July 16th is our next HETUG meeting. We'll meet, actually, sort of. We have something next week. But we'll meet Jen Snyder, who, if you remember from a few months ago, did an awesome Prep Queen tips and tricks. And Rob Kramer from the K-12 TUG is doing his TC 25 Encore. My favorite TC talk title, and probably one of my favorite presentations, Total Eclipse of the Chart, School Redistricting Dashboards. While it is K through 12 related, it's actually something that we can apply all over higher ed, from fundraiser territories to admissions officer regions to how do you just all sorts of mapping things that might be helpful. And if you want to present in the future, or if you know of a topic or a speaker that you want to see at an HETUG, just fill out that present at HETUG form. And we do want to highlight a few events that are happening next week. One, we're going to get accessible. Oh, look, there's a big question mark in the next one. We're going to get accessible at the CCC TUG. CCC TUG, HETUG, and the Accessibility TUG are co-hosting a session on accessibility. I'll be presenting my TC talk, and Lisa Truscott is going to do a dashboard glow up, and it's going to be amazing and very 80s. Next Thursday, right after, in fact, I don't really know how I'm teleporting, but the Boston TUG, the Mass Higher Ed TUG, and the MIT TUG are co-hosting a session where we'll hear about Tableau next. And Amy Wu is going to present on community groups, and we'll also, again, talk accessibility. And then finally, next Thursday is Analytics Day. If you haven't already registered, but you still want a link to get recordings and stuff after the fact, reach out to Ginny. We'll get you the information you need. And so with that, we want to say thank you. Thank you so much for coming to HETUG this month. We hope to see you again next week when we get accessible with the CCC TUG and the Accessibility TUG. And thank you again to our speakers, Josh and Preethi. And we will see you again soon.